The morning began the way it always did. Soft light slipped through the kitchen window, stretching across the floor in pale gold lines. The house was still half asleep. No rush. No noise. Just the gentle hum of the refrigerator, and the faint clink of a ceramic bowl being set down. It was a familiar sound. A comforting one. The kind of sound that usually brought quick footsteps. A wagging tail. A quiet excitement that filled the room. But today, nothing moved. The bowl sat there, untouched. Steam rose gently from the food. Warm. Fresh. Inviting. And the dog just sat a few feet away. Not lying down. Not pacing. Sitting. Still. His ears were relaxed, but alert. His eyes weren't dull. They were focused. As if he were listening to something deeper than hunger. His owner glanced over with a small smile. "Come on, buddy," they said softly. "Breakfast." The dog didn't respond. No whine. No hesitation. Just a slow, thoughtful breath. And then he leaned forward. He sniffed the air once. Carefully. Deliberately. Then, almost respectfully, he turned his head away. The smile faded, just a little. "Not hungry?" A gentle laugh followed. The kind meant to brush worry aside. Sometimes dogs did this. Skipped a meal. Acted strange for a day. It meant nothing. At least, that's what it felt like at first. The owner moved around the kitchen. Poured coffee. Checked the phone. Life continued in its normal rhythm. But the dog didn't leave. He stayed close. Too close to ignore. Wherever the owner went, he followed. Slow steps. Soft paws against the floor. When they sat, he sat nearby. When they stood, he stood too. Not anxious. Not clingy. Connected. At one point, he rested his head gently against their leg. No pressure. Just presence. The bowl remained full. Hours passed. Morning turned into afternoon. The light shifted. Golden tones giving way to softer shadows. The owner tried again. A fresh portion. Same food. Same spot. "Okay," they murmured. "Let's try again." The dog looked at the bowl this time. Really looked. He stepped forward. Paused. Then sat back down. Eyes calm. Steady. As if saying, "I know. But not yet." Concern crept in quietly. Not fear. Not panic. Just that subtle feeling when something doesn't fit where it should. "Hey," the owner whispered, crouching down. "What's going on?" The dog lifted his gaze. Their eyes met. And in that moment, there was something unmistakable there. Not confusion. Not discomfort. Purpose. The dog's tail gave one slow wag. Not excitement. Not joy. Reassurance. He leaned forward and gently licked the owner's hand. Once. Then rested his head there. The gesture lingered. It felt like comfort given. Not comfort asked for. That night, the bowl stayed untouched. The house grew quiet again. Lights dimmed. Television murmured in the background. The dog curled up nearby, as he always did. Breathing slow. Even. No restlessness. No signs of pain. Just stillness. And presence. The owner watched him for a long time, studying the rise and fall of his chest, the way his paws twitched slightly in sleep, the calm set of his face. "You're okay," they whispered, mostly to themselves. The dog's eyes opened briefly. He looked up, and for a second, it felt like he understood. The next morning came quietly. Another bowl. Another peaceful routine. Another refusal. Still no panic. But now, no more laughter either. By the third day, the pattern was clear. The dog hadn't eaten. Not once. Yet he still greeted the morning sun. Still followed the owner from room to room. Still responded to his name. Still wagged his tail. Softly. Carefully. As if conserving something precious. Friends suggested new food. Treats. Something extra special. The owner tried them all. The dog sniffed each one. Paused. Then gently turned away. Not rejecting. Declining. As if he were protecting himself from something unseen. The decision came quietly. No dramatic moment. No sudden fear. Just a calm realization. We need to have this checked. At the vet's office, the air was warm and familiar. The kind of place that smelled faintly of disinfectant. And comfort. The dog walked in on his own. Tail low, but relaxed. Steps steady. He didn't resist the exam table. Didn't tremble. Didn't pull away. He sat exactly where he was placed. Watching. Listening. The vet smiled gently. "Let's take a look at you, huh?" Hands moved carefully. Checking ears. Feeling along his sides. Everything seemed normal. The dog remained calm. As if waiting. When the vet leaned closer. Lifting his chin. Preparing to look inside his mouth. The dog didn't flinch. He didn't pull back. He simply opened his mouth. Slowly. Willingly. The room grew quiet. Not with fear, but with a sudden sense that something important was about to be understood. Everyone leaned in just a little. And in that stillness, the truth waited. What the dog had sensed would change everything. The exam room felt smaller than it really was. Not crowded. Just intimate. Soft overhead lights cast a warm glow across the stainless steel table. Everything looked clean. Orderly. Reassuring. The dog sat patiently, paws tucked close together. His breathing was steady. Slow. No signs of distress. The vet smiled again, calm, experienced. "He seems relaxed," she said quietly. "That's a good sign." The owner nodded, though their hands were clasped tighter than usual. "He hasn't eaten in days," they said. "Not even treats." The vet's expression didn't change. No alarm. No urgency. "Sometimes," she replied, "they're telling us something." She reached for a small light. The dog's eyes followed the movement. Not nervously. Not warily. Curiously. The vet leaned closer. Placed one hand gently beneath his jaw. "Good boy," she murmured. And again. The dog opened his mouth on his own. Slow. Careful. Trusting. The beam of light moved across his teeth. Along his gums. Toward the back. The room grew quieter. Not because anyone asked for silence, but because no one wanted to disturb the moment. The vet paused. Just for a second. Then she leaned in closer. She said softly. The owner's heart skipped, not in fear, but in recognition. Something was there. "What is it?" they asked, voice low. The vet didn't answer right away. She adjusted her angle. Checked again. Then she exhaled slowly. "There's something lodged back here," she said. "Very small." The dog didn't move. Didn't flinch. He simply stayed still, as if he had been waiting for this exact moment. The vet's fingers were gentle as she worked. Careful. Deliberate. After a few seconds, she withdrew her hand. Between her fingertips was a tiny object, barely noticeable at first glance. The room seemed to hold its breath. "It's a fragment," she explained. "Looks like a small piece of bone, or maybe hard plastic." The owner stared. That's it?" The vet nodded. "It was pressing just enough to make eating uncomfortable," she said. "Not painful enough to cause panic, but enough that he chose not to eat." She glanced at the dog. "And honestly, he handled it remarkably well." The owner felt something shift in their chest. Not relief yet. Something deeper. "He never tried to chew around it," the vet continued. "Never forced himself. He just stopped." The dog finally moved then. He closed his mouth gently, licked his lips once, and looked straight at his owner. The gaze was calm, steady, almost knowing. He trusted that someone would notice, the vet added quietly. "And you did." The words landed softly. The owner reached out without thinking, rested a hand against the dog's chest. Felt the warmth there. The heartbeat. Strong. "I thought he was being stubborn," they admitted. The vet shook her head. "No," she said kindly. "He was being careful." A pause followed. Then a small smile. "Dogs don't always tell us with noise," she said. "Sometimes they tell us by not doing something." The dog's tail gave a slow wag. "Just once." Like punctuation. The vet explained that the irritation would heal quickly. That the mouth was already relaxing now that the pressure was gone. That he'd likely be hungry soon. Very hungry. But no one rushed. No one laughed it off. Because now, the refusal had meaning. On the drive home, the dog sat quietly in the back seat. Sunlight flickered across the windows as the car moved. Trees passed by in slow rhythm. The owner glanced in the mirror. The dog met their eyes. And this time, he wagged his tail a little more. Not excitement. Relief. At home, the bowl was placed down again. Same spot. Same kitchen. Same soft afternoon light. The dog approached. Sniffed. Paused. The owner held their breath without realizing it. Then, slowly, the dog took a small bite. Just one. Chewed carefully. Swallowed. He stopped again. Looked up. The owner smiled through a quiet breath. "That's okay," they whispered. "We'll go slow." The dog's tail tapped the floor once. Agreement. Trust. The meal wasn't finished. But something had changed. The refusal was over. And what remained was understanding. Because the dog hadn't been difficult. He hadn't been dramatic. He had been listening to his body. And trusting his human to listen too. And in that gentle exchange, something deeper than routine had formed. A shared language. Built not from urgency, but from patience. From quiet observation. From love that knows when to wait. The days that followed moved more slowly. Not because time dragged, but because attention deepened. The house returned to its familiar rhythm. Morning light. Quiet footsteps. The soft clink of dishes. But now, nothing was taken for granted. The dog ate a little at a time. Small portions. Careful bites. No rushing. No excitement. Just patience. The owner sat nearby each time. Not hovering. Just present. Watching the way the dog approached the bowl. How he sniffed first. How he paused between mouthfuls. Every detail felt meaningful now. "You're doing good," the owner murmured one morning. Not praise. Encouragement. The dog's ears twitched at the sound of the voice. His tail gave a gentle sweep across the floor. Connection. That was the word that kept returning. Not worry. Not fear. Connection. They started noticing other things too. How the dog lingered in patches of sunlight longer than before. How he chose softer spots to lie down. How he leaned into quiet moments, resting his head against the couch, or placing a paw gently on the owner's knee. These weren't signs of weakness. They were signs of awareness. One afternoon, the owner sat on the floor, back against the couch. The room was filled with the soft hum of afternoon quiet. The dog approached. Slow steps. Calm posture. He lowered himself beside them, shoulder touching thigh. Neither moved. Outside, a breeze shifted the curtains. Light danced across the walls. The owner rested a hand on the dog's back. Felt the warmth. The steady breathing. "I almost missed it," they whispered. The dog didn't respond. Not with sound. But his body leaned in just a little more. As if to say, "You didn't." The trust between them felt different now. Deeper. It wasn't built on commands or routines. It was built on listening. Later that evening, a friend stopped by. They watched quietly as the dog ate. "Looks like he's doing better," the friend said. The owner nodded. "He told me something," they replied. "Just, not with words." The friend smiled politely, not fully understanding. But the dog did. He lifted his head. Met the owner's eyes. And in that moment, there was no mystery left between them. Only mutual recognition. The days turned into a gentle rhythm of recovery. Short walks. Long rests. The dog's steps were steady. Confident. He didn't pull on the leash. Didn't lag behind. He walked beside the owner. Matching pace. Matching breath. At one point, he stopped. Not suddenly. Just paused. He looked up. The owner stopped too. They waited. After a moment, the dog continued forward. Nothing dramatic had happened. But the owner smiled. Because they understood now. Sometimes stopping didn't mean something was wrong. Sometimes it meant checking in. That night, the dog finished his bowl. Every last bite. The sound was quiet. Unremarkable. But the owner watched anyway. Heart full. When the bowl was empty, the dog looked up. Tail wagging softly. Not celebration. Confirmation. The owner reached down and scratched behind his ears. "Thank you," they said. The dog leaned into the touch. Eyes half closed. Peaceful. Later, as the house settled into sleep, the dog curled up closer than usual. Not out of need. Out of choice. The owner lay awake for a moment, listening to the familiar sounds. Breathing. The soft ticking of the clock. They thought about how close they had come to misunderstanding something important. How easy it would have been to push. To insist. To rush past the message. Instead, they had paused. They had watched. They had listened. And in doing so, they had learned something quietly powerful. Dogs don't always cry out. Sometimes, they whisper. And when someone is willing to listen, truly listen, The bond that forms is stronger than routine, stronger than habit. It's built on respect, on patience, on the kind of love that doesn't demand answers, but waits for them. Something subtle had shifted, not just in the dog, but in the space between them. The house felt warmer somehow, not in temperature, in feeling. Morning light spilled in again, gentle and familiar. But now, when the owner moved through the kitchen, the dog watched differently. Not waiting, not anticipating, listening. The bowl was filled and placed down. Same quiet sound. Same spot on the floor. The dog approached without hesitation. Sniffed. Paused. Then ate. Slowly. Comfortably. The owner didn't speak. Didn't interrupt the moment. They simply stood there, hands resting on the counter, breathing evenly. When the dog finished, he didn't walk away right away. He sat. Looked up. Their eyes met. And something passed between them. Unspoken. Yet unmistakable. Trust had become a language. Later that morning, they went for a walk. The neighborhood was quiet. Lawn still damp with dew. Birds calling softly from somewhere unseen. The leash hung loose between them. No pulling. No tension. Just shared direction. The dog's ears flicked at distant sounds. A car door. A child's laughter. Wind in the trees. But he stayed close. Matching pace. At one corner, he slowed. The owner slowed too. They stood there together, waiting. For what? Neither could say. After a moment, the dog stepped forward again. The owner followed without question. That was new. Back home, the afternoon unfolded gently. The owner worked at the table. Papers spread out. Laptop humming softly. The dog settled nearby. Not asleep. Aware. Every so often, he'd lift his head. Check the room. Then rest again. As if standing watch over something fragile and precious. In the late afternoon, the owner felt it. That quiet ache in the chest. Not sadness. Gratitude. They looked over at the dog. At the calm set of his body. The ease in his breathing. I didn't know how much I needed this, they said quietly. The dog opened one eye. Just one. And his tail moved. A small, lazy sweep. That evening, as the sun dipped low, warm light filled the living room. Shadows stretched long across the floor. The owner sat on the couch, book forgotten in their hands. The dog climbed up beside them. Not all at once. One paw. Then another. Carefully. He settled in close, leaning his weight gently against the owner's side. They didn't push him away. Didn't adjust. They simply rested a hand on his shoulder. Breathing together. Outside, the world continued. Cars passing. Voices in the distance. Life unfolding as it always did. Inside, everything felt still. Complete. The owner thought about the days of uncertainty. The untouched bowl. The quiet refusal. How easily it could have become frustration. How close they'd been to missing the message entirely. Instead, they had slowed down. They had trusted the pause. The dog shifted slightly, pressing closer. His warmth steady. Reassuring. In that moment, it became clear. This wasn't just about food. Or health. Or a single decision made carefully. It was about partnership. About learning that love doesn't always rush in to fix things. Sometimes, love sits quietly and waits. The dog lifted his head and yawned softly. Then rested his chin on the owner's lap. Eyes closing. Safe. The owner smiled, fingers tracing slow circles through his fur. "Whatever it is," they whispered. "I'm listening." The dog's breathing deepened. And in the quiet that followed, there was no mystery left between them. Only trust. Built patiently. Gently. One quiet moment at a time. The follow-up visit wasn't urgent. That alone felt like progress. No tight grip on the leash. No hurried steps through the door. Just a calm walk, and a familiar place. The dog recognized it immediately. The same scent. The same gentle hum of the building. He walked in with quiet confidence, tail relaxed, posture easy. As if to say, "We've been here before." "It's okay." The owner signed in and took a seat. The chair creaked softly beneath them. Across the room, a child laughed. Somewhere down the hall, a door closed. Ordinary sounds. Comforting ones. The dog sat at their feet, leaning lightly against their leg. No shaking. No pacing. Just presence. When the vet called them in, the dog rose without hesitation. He followed the familiar path, nails clicking gently against the floor. The exam room felt warmer this time. Less unknown. The vet smiled when she saw him. "Well," she said, crouching slightly, "you look brighter today." The dog's tail moved, slow, easy. The exam was unhurried. Hands moved with intention. Voices stayed low. The vet checked his mouth again. Everything looked good. Healing. Clean. No signs of irritation. "He's doing exactly what he should be doing," she said. Listening to his body. The owner nodded. They understood that now. "There's something else," the vet added gently. "Something I wanted to mention." The room grew quieter. Not tense, just attentive. "Some dogs," she continued, "are more sensitive than we realize. They notice small discomforts and adjust their behavior before things get worse." She glanced at the dog. He didn't ignore the problem. He didn't push through it. She smiled softly. He respected himself enough to pause. The words settled slowly. The owner felt them land not as information, but as insight. On the drive home, the sky stretched wide and blue. Sunlight poured through the windshield. The dog lay comfortably in the back seat, head resting against the edge. Eyes half closed. Peaceful. At a stoplight, the owner looked back. "You did the right thing," they said quietly. The dog's eyes opened. He met their gaze. Held it. Then closed them again. Trust, confirmed. Back at home, the day unfolded gently. Lunch was eaten fully this time. No pauses. No hesitation. Just a calm, steady rhythm. The owner sat nearby, pretending to read. But really, they were watching. Not out of concern. Out of appreciation. Later, as afternoon light warmed the floor, the dog stretched out in his favorite spot. Sunlight traced the outline of his body. The owner watched him breathe. Slow. Even. And for the first time in days, there was no question left unanswered. Only understanding. The realization came quietly. The dog hadn't been asking for help in a dramatic way. He hadn't needed urgency. He had needed space. Time. And someone willing to notice. That evening, as shadows grew long and the house filled with soft lamplight, the owner prepared dinner. The familiar clink of the bowl echoed again. This time, it was met with immediate movement. The dog approached confidently. A soft wag. A relaxed posture. He ate. Finished. Then looked up with gentle expectation. The owner laughed quietly. Not relief. Joy. They knelt and wrapped their arms around him. Not tight. Not overwhelming. Just enough. "Thank you for trusting me," they whispered. The dog leaned into the embrace. And in that moment, the story shifted. From mystery to meaning. From concern to clarity. Because sometimes, answers don't arrive with urgency. They arrive softly. When both sides are finally ready to listen. It wasn't marked by drama. No sudden sound. No raised voices. Just a quiet moment, when understanding settled fully into place. The dog woke early the next morning. Before the alarm. Before the light. He stretched slowly, paws extending forward, back arching gently. Then he stood, and waited. The owner noticed. Noticed how calm he looked. How ready. "You're hungry, aren't you?" they asked softly. The dog's tail wagged a little quicker this time. Not frantic. Just sure. The kitchen filled with the familiar morning glow. The bowl was placed down. And for the first time since all of this began, the dog didn't hesitate. He ate. Fully. Comfortably. The sound was quiet, steady, normal. And somehow, that made it extraordinary. The owner leaned against the counter, arms crossed loosely, watching. Their chest felt light. Not because the problem was solved, but because the meaning had finally surfaced. This wasn't just recovery. It was communication. Later that day, they sat together in the living room. Windows open. Fresh air moving through the space. The dog lay at the owner's feet, head resting on his paws. Every so often, he'd glance up. Check in. The owner would meet his eyes, and smile. No words needed. That afternoon, a memory surfaced. The owner remembered the first day they'd brought him home. How small he'd been. How uncertain. How he looked up with the same eyes, calm, observant, trusting. "You've always been like this," the owner whispered. "You just needed me to catch up." The dog's ears lifted slightly. Recognition. As evening settled in, golden light filled the room once more. The dog moved closer, resting his chin against the owner's knee. A familiar gesture. But now, it felt layered. It carried history. Understanding. The owner rested a hand on his head, fingers moving slowly. In that stillness, the turning point became clear. The story had never been about a dog refusing food. It had been about a dog choosing himself, and trusting his human to understand why. That realization brought a quiet wave of emotion. Not tears. A soft ache. The kind that comes with gratitude. "You taught me something," the owner said. The dog sighed contentedly. Outside, the world dimmed. Inside, the lights came on warm, steady. Dinner came and went. The dog ate with ease. Then curled up close, pressing his back gently against the owner's leg. They sat together for a long time. Not doing anything. Just being. And in that unremarkable moment, everything felt resolved. The tension gone. The question answered. What remained was something stronger than relief. Respect. Because the dog hadn't just endured discomfort quietly. He had trusted. He had waited. He had believed someone would notice. And now, that belief had been honored. The owner leaned back, eyes closing briefly. A quiet thought settled in. Some lessons arrive wrapped in stillness. They don't demand attention. They wait, patiently, until someone is ready to see them. The days that followed were simple. Quiet. Steady. Yet each moment carried new meaning. The dog's routine returned to normal. Morning walks, soft sunlight on the floor, meals eaten without hesitation. But the weight of the previous days lingered, not as worry, but as understanding. The owner noticed things differently now. Small details became significant. Subtle gestures carry weight. One afternoon, as sunlight pooled in the living room, the dog sat on the rug. Ears perked. Eyes calm, yet attentive. He approached a small corner of the room where sunlight hit just right. He sniffed briefly. paused, then returned to his usual spot. The owner followed his movements silently, heart quietly observing. It was then the realization struck. Everything the dog had done had been purposeful. Every pause, every refusal, every glance and step. He hadn't been stubborn. He hadn't been disobedient. He had been guiding, signaling. The minor irritation in his mouth, small as it was, had caused subtle discomfort. Not pain enough to cry out. Not distress enough to panic. But enough for him to communicate. In the only way he knew how. Through patience. Through trust. Through refusal. The vet had said it softly, days ago, but the owner now understood it fully. He had been protecting himself. And he had been asking for help without words. Every moment of quiet, every gentle gesture, was part of a dialogue they had shared without speaking. The owner knelt beside him, running a hand along his fur. "Everything you've done, it makes sense now," they whispered. "Every single thing." The dog lifted his head and placed it against their shoulder. Soft. Steady. Comforting. The truth behind his actions was more beautiful than anyone imagined. It wasn't just about avoiding discomfort. It was about teaching patience. About demonstrating trust. About showing that love isn't always loud. Sometimes love waits. And watches. And gently guides. The evening light softened, bathing the room in amber hues. The dog curled up beside the owner. They rested together, quiet, connected. A shared rhythm. A deep bond. Outside, leaves rustled in the breeze. The world continued its motion. Inside, a profound stillness remained. The owner reflected on the lessons learned. On how easily one could misunderstand silence for stubbornness. How subtle messages could carry profound meaning. How watching and listening could transform uncertainty into connection. A soft sigh passed between them. Not exhaustion. Not relief. A sigh of gratitude. The dog lifted his head once more. Eyes met the owner's. A quiet understanding passed. No words were needed. No explanation required. The message had been received. The trust had been honored. And in that warm, golden light, everything felt complete. Morning arrived softly. Sunlight stretched through the curtains, painting the living room in gentle gold. The air carried a faint scent of fresh coffee and warm floorboards. The house felt alive, but calm. The dog stood near the window, ears flicking at distant sounds. Tail wagged gently, almost in rhythm with the slow rise of light across the floor. There was no hesitation today. No pause. Only steady confidence. The owner poured a small portion into his bowl. He approached without glancing elsewhere. Sniffed once. Then ate. Fully. Comfortably. The simple act felt monumental. It marked a return to routine. But also something deeper. A connection solidified in quiet observation and trust. Later, they walked together in the neighborhood. The morning breeze carried the scent of damp grass and distant flowers. The dog matched every step. Paws tapping gently against the sidewalk. Breathing calm. Head held high. Alert, but relaxed. At the park, he paused at a small patch of sunlight. Sniffed the air. Then, without hesitation, returned to his owner's side. It was clear every movement carried intention. Every glance, every pause, every step had meaning. Back home, the afternoon unfolded in gentle rhythm. The dog rested nearby while the owner read. The soft hum of the air conditioner. The quiet tapping of keys. The distant sound of children playing outside. No tension. No worry. Just presence. The owner reflected on the last week. The untouched bowls. The quiet refusals. The subtle gestures that had seemed mysterious at first. It all made sense now. Each pause. Each measured step, every gentle signal. The dog had taught them patience, trust, the power of listening without rushing, the beauty of quiet guidance. Evening came, and warm lamplight filled the room. Shadows stretched long across the floor. The dog curled up at the owner's feet, head resting lightly on the rug, occasionally lifting to glance up, tail sweeping gently in quiet acknowledgement. The owner reached down, hand resting softly on his back. A calm sight passed between them. Not words, not commands, just understanding. "Thank you," the owner whispered, "for trusting me, for teaching me, for being patient." The dog leaned closer. Soft eyes met their gaze. Breath even, heart steady. Outside, the world continued. Inside, the house was filled with warmth. Soft quiet. Connection. Love. The lesson was simple, yet profound. It wasn't about stubbornness. It wasn't about food. It was about communication, trust, mutual respect. The dog had refused to eat, not to defy, but to teach, to guide, to invite patience. And in doing so, he had strengthened the bond that tied them together. The owner leaned back, letting the weight of the day settle. The dog rested his head on their lap. They stayed like that for a long time, quietly breathing together. The house filled with gentle stillness. The world, outside and within, aligned in warmth. In that quiet evening light, the story came to a close. Not with drama, not with chaos, but with healing, trust, and the deep, unspoken love between a dog and the human who had finally learned to listen.